The first time Daniel noticed her, it was nearly midnight, and the world outside his restaurant had already gone quiet. The chairs were flipped onto tables. The neon open sign had gone dark. The scent of fried onions and coffee still clung to the air like a memory that refused to leave. Daniel stood at the register, counting the day's cash, exhaustion pressing into his shoulders like a weight he had carried for years. That's when his 6-year-old son's small voice broke the silence. "Daddy," Liam whispered from the booth where he'd been coloring. "She's still here." Daniel looked toward the back of the diner. At the stainless steel sink, under the harsh fluorescent lights, stood Maria. She was hunched over a mountain of dishes, her hands red from hot water, sleeves rolled past her elbows. Steam rose around her like a thin fog. She had been there since 4 in the afternoon. No break longer than 10 minutes. No complaint louder than a sigh. Daniel swallowed. He'd hired Maria 2 weeks ago after catching her digging through the trash behind the diner. Not stealing, just searching. He'd stepped outside to throw away a box of expired lettuce when he saw her, a thin woman in a faded grey sweater, dark hair pulled into a loose ponytail. She looked up at him, eyes wide with embarrassment, but there had been no anger in them, just hunger. "I wasn't going to make a mess," she'd said quickly. "I just thought maybe there might be something still good." Daniel remembered the way Liam had been watching from the doorway that night. "Daddy," his son had whispered, "is she hungry?" That question had pierced something deep in Daniel's chest. So he'd offered her a meal. Then a job. It wasn't much. Minimum wage. Evening shifts washing dishes and cleaning tables. But Maria had accepted like he'd handed her the world. Now, watching her scrub a stubborn grease stain, Daniel felt something heavy settle in his heart. "She should go home," Liam said softly. Daniel hesitated. He didn't know where home was for Maria. She never talked about it. She worked. She thanked him. She left. "Go grab your jacket, buddy," Daniel said. "We'll close up." Liam obeyed, but not before glancing back at Maria again. Daniel walked to the back. "You don't have to finish all of it tonight," he said gently. "We can handle the rest in the morning." Maria shook her head without turning around. "It's okay. I'll finish. I don't mind." Her voice was calm, but tired. Daniel leaned against the counter. "It's past 11. She paused for just a second. "I know," she said quietly. "I just like staying busy." He studied her reflection in the metal backsplash. There was something about the way she avoided his eyes. "Maria," he asked carefully, "do you have somewhere to go after this?" For a moment, only the sound of running water filled the room. Then she turned off the faucet. Her lips curved into a small, practiced smile. "I'll manage," she said. But Daniel noticed she didn't answer the question. Behind him, Liam tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy," he whispered again, louder this time. "She's still here." Daniel looked down at his son, then back at the woman standing alone in the bright, empty kitchen. And for the first time, he wondered if Maria wasn't just staying late to work, but because she had nowhere else to be. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Liam was curled beside him on the couch in their small apartment above the diner, his tiny hand resting on Daniel's arm. Since Emily had passed away 2 years ago, the two of them had formed a quiet rhythm of survival. Early mornings, long shifts, microwave dinners, bedtime stories read through exhaustion. Daniel had learned how to braid hair for school. Picture day, only to remember halfway through that Liam didn't need braids. He'd learned how to cook pancakes without burning them. He'd learned how to smile when his heart felt like cracked glass. He knew what it meant to lose everything. Around 1 a.m., he heard a faint sound downstairs. A door closing. Footsteps. He carefully moved Liam's hand and stepped outside onto the narrow balcony that overlooked the alley. Maria was there. She wasn't leaving. She was sitting on the back steps of the diner, hugging her knees to her chest. A thin blanket, one he recognized from the Lost and Found box, was draped over her shoulders. Daniel's stomach dropped. She hadn't gone home. Because this was home. The next morning, he didn't mention it, but he watched her closely. She worked like always. Quiet, efficient, grateful. At noon, the diner filled with the usual lunch crowd, construction workers. nurses from the nearby hospital, a retired couple who shared a grilled cheese every Thursday. Liam sat at the counter, swinging his legs. When Maria passed by with a stack of plates, he tugged gently at her sleeve. "Miss Maria," he said with the blunt honesty only children have, "why don't you sleep in a bed?" The entire world seemed to freeze. Daniel's heart stopped. Maria blinked. What do you mean?" She asked softly. "I saw you," Liam said. "Out back. It's cold." A few customers glanced over. Daniel rushed forward. "Buddy, that's not." "It's okay," Maria interrupted gently. She knelt down so she was eye level with Liam. "Sometimes grown-ups are just figuring things out," she said with a faint smile. "Just like kids." Liam frowned. "But Daddy says we help people when they're figuring things out." The words hung in the air. Daniel felt heat creep up his neck. Maria stood slowly, her eyes meeting his for the first time without distance. "I don't want to be a burden," she said quietly. "You're not," Daniel replied immediately. But even as he said it, he realized he hadn't truly acted like it. He had given her a job, not a chance. That evening, after closing, Daniel made a decision that scared him more than any unpaid bill ever had. "Maria," he said, hands shoved into his pockets, "the apartment upstairs has a spare room. It used to be my wife's sewing room." Her eyes widened. "I couldn't." "It's temporary," he said quickly. "Just until you get back on your feet. Liam and we've had help before. It matters." Silence stretched between them. Then her shoulders began to shake. She covered her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. "I haven't heard someone say that to me in years," she whispered. From behind Daniel, Liam grinned. "See," he said proudly. "I told you she's still here." But this time, it didn't sound like worry. It sounded like hope. Maria moved into the spare room the next day with nothing but a small duffel bag and a folded photograph. Daniel didn't ask questions right away. He'd learned that people share their stories when they feel safe enough. And slowly, she did. Her husband had died in a factory accident 3 years earlier. The legal battle for compensation drained what little savings they had. Medical bills followed. Then eviction. She had bounced between friends' couches until there were no couches left. "I kept telling myself it was temporary," she said one evening while drying dishes. "But temporary can stretch into forever when no one sees you." Daniel understood that more than she knew. But something changed after she moved in. Maria didn't just wash dishes anymore. She reorganized the pantry. She suggested adding her late husband's favorite soup recipe to the menu. It became a hit, customers lining up for what they called Maria's comfort bowl. Business improved. Regulars started tipping more when they heard her story, not out of pity, but respect. One afternoon, a woman in a navy blazer came into the diner and ordered the soup. She watched Maria move through the kitchen with quiet confidence. After finishing her meal, she asked to speak to Daniel. "I run a local housing initiative," she said, handing him a card. "We partner with small,